Hello, my beautiful friend, and happy welcome back to the Rebirth Cafe. It's so good to see you. Oh my God, what a day. Do you know these days where it's just really, really busy and you're running like from one thing to another? Today is the day. Oh my God. So, welcome. Sit back. Let's sip some truth. Today, I actually thought I'm going to tell a bit about myself because many of you maybe know me, maybe some of you don't. Some of you maybe know part of my story, others not at all. And if you've listened to the Assyrian podcast from, I think, 3 years ago, a lot has changed since then. So let me start by who I am, what I'm doing, what I experienced in this lifetime so far. And yeah, this is actually a more I get to know me video, and I think a bit of a talk to you as well. So, hi, I'm Babilenia. I'm a mother of 4 children, 3 earthly children and a baby girl in heaven. I'm 40 years old, and this is the best time in my life ever. So don't stress out about becoming 30 or turning 40 because it only really gets better the older you get. I'm married. I live in the Netherlands. I was born and raised to an Assyrian family from Beth Nahrin, Turkey, in Germany. So I was born and raised in Germany. I went to school over there. I did studies, and I came to the Netherlands when I was 24 years old, which means I'm living here for 15 and a half years already. We live in Rotterdam. And so like many Assyrian women, I was raised in a diaspora, obviously, but in a really tight family constellation. So, my grandparents were back then all alive, still alive. So we've been there every weekend. We spent the weekends with our grandparents, with our cousins, with our uncles and aunts. And I mean, you know how it is, right? So there was a lot of celebration. In the summers, we went outdoors and stuff. So if I look back, it's been an incredible time. I had a great childhood, really. And I was also raised very much into the Assyrian culture because my dad was very much involved in, Assyrian work and our organizations. So I was dancing folklore by the age of 6. I've been part of the youth committee when I was younger. I think I started when I was 14, 15. So basically, I have been involved in being an Assyrian and Assyrian history and who we are from a young age on. So I really loved that. We went to all these, hage, and we were dancing. So it was the biggest part of my life. Take a sip. Which I obviously really, really loved. And then, yeah, of course, you get older and you somehow get intertwined into cultures, So in my case, the Assyrian culture and the German culture. I had a lot of German friends. So, yeah, there is always this identity question, I think, which is going to be another subject by itself. But there's always been this identity question. Who am I? Who do I want to be? And how can I find myself within our religion, our cultures, our traditions, the expectations from your family, your parents, and, like the wider community and everything. So, and I think my life changed for the first time really profoundly when I fell in love with a Croatian guy when I was 16, my first love. And the first time life hit me with how cruel it can be and how reality actually is or can be was when he committed suicide. I was 17 back then. I was in my last year of high school. Yeah, what can I say? I mean, you can imagine that this was, I don't know, it was crazy. I mean, I was such a young girl, and it was the first time that I experienced death, and then that sort of death, of that kind of death, for the first time so closely. I never experienced death in my family that close. I mean, I used to hear that, some family members passed, but it's never been so close to home. So that was for me the worst thing ever, because we were still officially together. We didn't break up. I was so madly in love, as you can be when you're falling in love for the first time. So that was for me the hardest time ever. And back then I couldn't imagine that something even more difficult will or can happen to life, because yeah, you're still young, right? So this was for me a really, 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 really difficult time, because it's the first time that something like that most probably also happened maybe in Assyrian culture, or I'm sure there were others. I mean, you know what I mean, right? I mean, maybe it was the first time for the people around me who've been Assyrian that they experienced something like that. For my parents, it was really hard, because I mean, they were sort of against the relationship, because you know how our parents are. They want Assyrians, and they want the daughters and the sons to marry Assyrians, which is fine. And I was really young. I was 17, and my mom was like, "You don't know what love is." So they were sort of not really happy with that. And then suddenly he committed suicide. He wasn't around, and they saw their daughter heartbroken. And it was really hard, because they didn't know how to help me, because you have to go then the path of therapy and these kind of things. And in our communities, these are really things people do not talk about. It's such a shameful subject. So my parents really did their utmost best to help and support me. My mom even helped me to find a therapist I felt comfortable with, because they knew, regardless of whether they liked it or not, something so profound happened that changed me. So that was the first time that I experienced something really, really hard. And then many, many years after, I fell in love with my husband, and I knew that I was playing with the fire, because my husband isn't Assyrian. My husband is Surinamese. That's the country next to Brazil. If you don't know where that is, Suriname. So he's Hindi Surinamese, and he was born and raised in the Netherlands. So I fell in love with him, and I knew obviously that I was playing with the fire, because again, not Assyrian. There's a common theme here, right? So, but I fell in love, and I loved this man. And I mean, my first love didn't turn out the way I wanted it to be, obviously. So, I knew this is the man I'm going to marry from the first moment I saw. And I can tell you it hasn't been easy, because when you're raised by strong Assyrian parents, this is something very much out of their comfort zone, because it's so different, right? So I had to decide that regardless of where I'm coming from, and regardless of how much I love my parents, and I'm grateful for whatever they did for me, and with whatever they could, it was the best they could. I decided to follow my heart, which is in our culture something that most probably doesn't happen really often if you marry outside of your culture, or whether you do something that it's not very common in our culture as well. So I knew it's going to be hard. At the end, I didn't expect it to be as hard as it was, because it did break a lot, obviously. And now something came up like break the cycle. Yes. And I mean, whether you are for interracial marriages, I don't like this word, but I think you know what I mean. Whether you like marriages from with two people who are not from the same culture, whether you're like it or not, we're still people. We're still humans. But something like that was really a huge thing, because all my cousins, they were either married to Assyrians, or they were married to Germans, or like Greek or Italians, which was a bit closer. But with Surinamese or Hindu, my mom and dad were like, okay, we don't really know anything about that. One zip. And of course, it was really hard on them as well. because their oldest daughter, I'm the oldest of four, broke some really profound rules, I would say, and maybe unwritten rules in our culture. And at the same time, they wanted to be happy for me. They wanted me to be happy in that relationship and afterwards marriage. But I really had to go against my parents. I had to go against what I was raised for. At least that's how they put it back then. And I'm sure if I would ask them now, they were like, okay, we maybe said things back then because we were hurting. We wouldn't say it right now. But I mean, it's been hard. It's been hard on me. It's been hard on my husband. It's been hard on my parents and on my siblings as well, because I was the first one who broke like really a big rule, right? So I had to go against my parents to be with the man I love. I had to be against my culture, and that's how it felt like back then, that I'm going against my culture to follow my heart. And it's been hell, because it's been a hell of a ride, and a lot of things were said and a lot of emotions. And then obviously the thing with our twin daughters. But while I'm talking, I'm like, okay, Babylonia, just come to the point. What the hell do you actually want to say? What I want to say to you, beautiful, is now you know a bit about me, what I've been through. And I want to say, actually, which is quite important, what am I actually doing? Well, I used to work for a big company called Shell Chemicals for many, many years. I had a good job. I had great jobs. The last job I did was a marine analyst, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy, and I knew this is not the job I'm going to do until the rest of my life. I always wanted to be with women. I always was already coaching since I was a little kid. My mom always said to me, your friends are keep calling and you're really good in coaching them. So I knew this is my thing. So I quit my job at Shell. I did a study, so I'm really certified as a coach, as a children's coach. And then I did like an extra edition on focusing on women. So I am a women's coach. I work with Assyrian women because I want to create that space for Assyrian women, because I know that if I've struggled with so many things, there must be a million other Assyrian women who struggle as well. And I realized that I never had the help that we all needed. And I want to create that space for you and every other Assyrian woman as well, that it's okay to follow your heart, and that it's okay sometimes to break the rules, and that at the end, it's your life, no matter how hard that is, but you're gonna leave this world on your own, right? So I'm a woman's coach. I work holistically because I believe in working with your mind as well as with the body. So I have a holistic approach as well, which I love, and I love what I'm doing. I'm really good in what I'm doing, and I couldn't enjoy this work more than I already do. So this is who I am. And I want to tell you that no matter what you've been through, no matter what you've experienced, and whether what you've experienced so far, your trauma and your pain, might be worse than what I've experienced or might be less. And just hear me out, there is no worse or less, right? Because I believe that the person who's in pain, for that person, her pain is the worst pain ever. And that's also how we should treat it, because we all have different perspectives on pain and trauma and what we see as something that really hurt us or not. So whatever it is for you, whatever you've been through, whatever you're experiencing right now, it is okay to feel that way. But I also want to tell you, don't let it break you, because this isn't you. It's one part of the person that you are right now. It's something that happened to you when you are vulnerable, when you didn't know what to do, when you saw or experienced things that were out of your control, right? So this is not your fault. And whatever you experienced and whatever you may believe about yourself, or you may believe that people think about you, it's not true, right? Because you're so much more than what happens to you. And I mean, look at me. It's not been an easy ride, for sure not. Do I sometimes think, well, God, this could have been a bit easier, not so drastic, not so dramatically? Sip, sip. But it all had to happen in order for me to be here right now in this moment, and being so grateful for everything I have, and even being grateful for every experience I had to experience. Because in hindsight, it's been a gift. And I know it's not easy to say that. It takes a lot of time and consciousness and work and inner work and self-love and self-worth to come to that place to say that. But you're here to experience experiences, right? You're here to experience life. And some lessons are fucking hard and some are not. But it's all part of who you are, because whatever we go through, it shapes us into the person that we are meant to be. Because I believe that every soul that enters this world has like this pure, how do you say it, like, you know, we come to this world so perfectly, and we should leave it perfectly with our highest self, like the best version we can be, right? Which means for me that you're in alignment with your soul and your body, and you're fit mentally and physically, and you do what you love, you change the world, you have a gift, you bring that to the world. So for me, this is the ultimate thing. And when we get there, we have to experience all these things in order to shed all the limiting beliefs that we have about life and about the things we should and we shouldn't do. There is nothing in this world you cannot achieve or not have. Really, it's quite dark in here, right? I'm sorry, it's a bit grayish here. So you are meant for more. And whatever you've been through, it's not who you are. It doesn't shape, it shapes you in a form of, you know, you're carrying that scar with you. But that is not just you. You are so much more than your pain and your trauma and the hurt. Sorry. You're more than that. And I want to tell you, because a lot of people tell me, just a moment, Babylonia, I can't do what you're doing. I don't know how you're doing it. And sometimes I also don't know how I do it. I just believe that I deserve better. I believe that whatever happened to me had to happen. And that there was a lesson, that there was something I had to learn, no matter how painful it was with every experience. That doesn't mean that I wasn't going crazy, that I couldn't get out of bed, that I was doubting myself, that I was doubting every decision I made, that I thought, you know, maybe it would have been easier if I wouldn't been around. I mean, we all have that thoughts, right? We all had them. And that doesn't mean that I wasn't heartbroken and didn't think I would ever be able to, you know, stand tall and be the person I want to be after every experience. So it means you should mourn. It means you should be sad and you should be angry and you should be pissed, you know, you should be all of it, because it's part of that. And especially for us women, we get to be angry, right? Because from that anger, because from that anger, something beautiful can come if we let it, right? Because we always have a choice. There's always the freedom of choice. Do you choose to stay in that shit? Or do you choose like, okay, it did hurt me and it was shit and I didn't like it and it did something with me and I'm afraid, you know? That's all fine. But then the next step, what is the next step that you're taking? Because once again, there is nothing in this lifetime that you're not able to carry. And so many people kept telling me after we lost our daughter, you know, God always chooses the strongest soldier to give them the strongest task. And if I wouldn't be able to carry it, I wouldn't have gotten it. And I know that I've heard this many, many times, and I was like, I don't like that. And it's kind of true, which doesn't mean that if you haven't experienced something so profound, you're not a strong soldier. You are, just on a totally different level, right? So after really introducing myself and what I'm doing, and it's been a bit chaotic, right? I mean, I jumped from here and there, I'm sorry. But here you get the real me. This is the Rebirth Cafe. And I wanted to tell you that you know what I experienced. And these are only the biggest things, right? Because we